She folds his shirt again. Another morning, another silent hope. Not because he asked, but because it hurts less than letting go. The fabric is soft, worn thin in places, a quiet witness to all the mornings before. Her hands move with ritual precision, pressing out the creases as if, by smoothing cloth, she could smooth the ache that pulses inside her ribcage. A small act, unnoticed. The sun, half-hearted behind the window, casts a pale light across the room. She holds the shirt to her face, breathing in a memory that is more longing than presence. He is not there. He rarely is, not truly. His body moves through these rooms, but his spirit is always elsewhere, chasing a quiet oblivion, lost in the haze of his own wounds. She waits for him in the spaces between words, in the silence after slammed doors, in the hope that this time her devotion might be enough. She tells herself, "He'll see me. He'll see what I give." But the voice that whispers this is not hers alone. It is older, deeper, echoing from a place she cannot name. She watched her mother do the same. Stay, serve, suffer, smile. The memory is not a picture, but a feeling. The closing of a throat, the slow erosion of laughter, the endless folding of shirts that never belonged to her. There is a contract here, inked not with words but with blood. She bleeds quietly, hoping the wound will become a bridge. But he never asked her to bleed. He never promised to heal. He only stood there, broken, and let her believe that her pain might be the cure. He doesn't need to change, not while you keep bleeding for him. How many times have you made the silent vow? If I love deeper, if I give more, if I stay through the storm, he will awaken. He will become the man I see behind his eyes. This is the old spell. The myth handed down from woman to woman, generation to generation, that love is proven by endurance, that suffering is the price of devotion, that a man's transformation is a woman's cross to bear. But he never promised redemption. You just promised to bleed. You are not loving a man, you are loving a wound. You are pouring your light into a well with no bottom, believing that if you empty yourself, something holy will rise from the darkness. But the well remains dry, and you are left hollow, pressing shirts that smell less and less like hope. Jung called it projection, the act of seeing in another what we long for, what we lack, what we refuse to face in ourselves. You see not the man, but the possibility, not his silence, but the echo of your own longing, not his absence, but the promise that someday, if you are good enough, patient enough, loving enough, he will turn toward you and become the hero of your story. But he is not your story. He is not your father, not your savior, not the boy you wished would choose you on the playground. He is simply a man, wounded in ways you cannot heal, living a pattern that is not yours to break. Still, you bleed. You offer your heart on the altar of hope, petals wilting with each unanswered prayer. The flowers are dry, the candle is cold, but you kneel anyway, believing that devotion is enough to resurrect the dead. Every time you bleed to prove love, you renew the contract that says, "My pain will save him." This is the wound of the romantic martyr, the anima ferita, the feminine soul taught to suffer for love, to offer herself as a sacrifice in the hope that a man's healing will become her salvation. It is a story as old as myth, as insidious as a dream. The woman who stays, who serves, who bleeds, believing that her suffering is sacred, that her endurance is the proof of love. But suffering is not sacred. Suffering is not love. Suffering is the shadow of a contract you never signed, but live as if it were law. She remembers being a child, watching her mother's hands move in silence, folding, cleaning, waiting. The house was quiet, thick with unshed tears, with words swallowed and hopes buried beneath the weight of tradition. This is how women love, she learned, with patience, with pain, with the willingness to disappear so that someone else might shine. Compulsion of repetition, Jung called it, the unconscious drive to reenact the original wound, to love in the hope that this time the ending will be different. If I can save him, I can save myself. But the wound only deepens, and you wake each morning more ghost than woman. He never promised you a future. He never promised you change. He simply needed someone to hold his pain, and you, longing to be needed, became the vessel. But a vessel cannot fill itself by pouring out. A heart cannot heal by bleeding. A soul cannot awaken by staying asleep inside someone else's dream. You wake before dawn, the world still hushed and raw. You move through the house like a ghost, collecting the fragments of yesterday's hope. On the altar, the flowers are brittle, their petals falling like feathers. The candle has burned itself out, leaving only a curl of smoke, a memory of light. You touch your chest. There is a wound there, a slow, steady ache. You bleed not for him, but for the part of you that still believes suffering is proof of love. You kneel at the altar, hands trembling. You whisper the old prayer, "Let him see me. Let him change." But the silence is deafening. The only answer is your own heartbeat, heavy and alone. He is not cruel, he is simply lost. But you are not lost. You are choosing to remain on the altar, offering yourself to a God who never asked for sacrifice. You remember your mother's eyes, the sadness hidden beneath her smile. You remember the way she folded shirts and the way she served, the way she suffered. You remember the silence that grew between her and the world, a silence you have inherited, a silence you have mistaken for virtue. But this is not virtue. This is the wound repeating itself, generation to generation, woman to woman. This is the contract that says, "My pain will save him." This is the lie that keeps you bleeding. There is a moment just before the sun rises when the world holds its breath. In that pause, you feel the weight of all the mornings you have lost, all the hope you have spent, all the blood you have given. You look at your hands. They are stained with your own sacrifice. You have become both altar and offering, both priestess and prisoner. He never promised to heal. You just promised to bleed. The anima within you, the living soul, the wild heart, cries for freedom. She is tired of folding shirts, tired of waiting at altars, tired of believing that her love must prove itself through pain. She remembers a time before the bleeding, before the contract, before the wound. She remembers laughter, sunlight, the feeling of running barefoot through grass. She remembers a self that existed without needing to be chosen, without needing to be enough for someone else. That self is not dead. She is only sleeping, waiting for you to remember her. The wound is not yours to heal. The contract is not yours to keep. The altar is built on illusions. The flowers are dead. The candle is out. He never promised to heal. You just promised to bleed. You press the shirt to your chest, feeling the weight of all that you have carried. You remember every silent morning, every unanswered prayer, every drop of blood offered in hope. It is time to break the spell. It is time to see clearly. You are not here to save him. You are here to save yourself. In the silence, a new voice rises, steady, ancient, loving in its truth. Stop bleeding for a man who never asked for your blood. Step away from the altar. Let the flowers fall. Leave the candle cold. You do not need to prove your love through suffering. You do not need to carry the wound of your mother or her mother before her. You do not need to repeat the story. He never promised to heal. You just promised to bleed. And now, you can choose to stop. The morning comes pale and honest. You stand at the window, watching the light creep across the floor. Your hands are empty, your heart aching. But for the first time, you feel the possibility of something new. You are not the wound. You are not the offering. You are not the altar. You are the woman who can choose to stop bleeding. You are the woman who can remember herself. You are the woman who can break the vow. There is a silence that follows the breaking of an ancient vow. It is not the silence of peace, but the silence of the earth after fire, scorched, trembling, unfamiliar. In this hush, you stand alone, the altar behind you, your hands stained with the memory of all you have offered. The shirt lies folded, untouched. The flowers on the altar are dust. The air is thick with the ache of everything you have surrendered. You wait for a sign. You wait for the world to shift, for him to notice your absence, for the spell to break. But the world does not move. The house remains still, and he, the man you have bled for, does not awaken. He does not cry out. He does not even notice that you have stopped kneeling. This is the truth you have never wanted to see. He will not change, not because he is cruel, but because you have changed, and he has not needed to. Every time you adapted, he settled more deeply into his sleep. Every time you bent to fit his wounds, he turned further from his own awakening. You have shaped yourself into every woman he needed, until the woman you truly are became invisible, even to yourself. You keep waiting for him to wake up. You keep waiting for him to finally see you, to finally rise from the ashes of his own pain, to finally become the man you have held in your mind since the first day your heart broke open for him. But he is not asleep. He is simply living. And you are the one who has been dreaming. So if you keep adapting, he has no reason to awaken. You have become a shapeshifter, molding yourself to every shadow in his soul. You have learned to anticipate his moods, to soften your words, to swallow your needs. You have become so skilled at disappearing that you hardly notice the loneliness anymore. It is just the temperature of your days. You think this is love. You think this is devotion. But what you call love is the compulsion to become invisible, to make yourself small, to erase your hunger for the sake of his comfort. What you call devotion is the ancient ache to heal the wound that was never yours. You are not in love with him. You are in love with the hope that your love will finally heal what your heart could not reach in your father, or in the first man who broke you. You are not trying to save him. You are trying to rewrite the story that began long before you ever knew his name. Jung called it the father complex, the wound that shapes a daughter's longing, the missing presence, the unreachable tenderness, the love that was withheld or inconsistent or never truly safe. The father becomes a shadow, a ghost in the heart, a hunger that seeks to be fed by every man who follows. You see your father in the man who will not change. You see the boy behind his eyes, wounded and unreachable, and you think, this time I will be enough. This time I will heal the father by loving the son. You pour your devotion into the same empty well, hoping that if you endure enough, if you suffer enough, if you love enough, the story will finally end differently. But the wound is not in him. The wound is in you. The love that demands suffering is not sacred. It is submission, dressed in the language of devotion. You have inherited this story, the story of the invisible mother, the silent daughter, the woman who offers her blood on altars built by men who never asked for sacrifice. You learned this story watching your mother smile through clenched teeth, watching her make herself small so that others would not feel threatened. You learned it in the silence of dinner tables, in the hush that followed every outburst, in the way love was always conditional, always earned through obedience, patience, and pain. You became the daughter of silence, the inheritor of invisibility. You learned to love by disappearing, to hope by suffering, to endure by making yourself the offering. He is not cruel. He is simply living his own sleep. But you, beloved, are the one who remains at the altar, even when the offering is never received. The altar is covered in flowers that were once vibrant but are now brittle, petals falling to the floor like the years you have given. The candle is cold, the wax hardened into a shape that will never burn again. You kneel before this altar, your hands open, your heart raw, waiting for a miracle that will never come. He does not see you. He cannot see you, not while you remain an echo of his own emptiness. You are not waiting for him. You are waiting for your father. You are waiting for the moment when someone looks at you and says, "You are enough, just as you are. You do not have to bleed for me. You do not have to disappear." But that voice will not come from outside. It will not come from him or from any man. It must come from within, from the part of you that remembers who you were before you learned to offer your heart as proof of worth. The woman you were before you loved by blood is still alive. She lives in the quiet moments, in the laughter that bubbles up when you forget to be careful. She lives in the hunger that rises when you remember what it felt like to be seen, to be chosen, to be celebrated for your own wildness. She is not dead. She is only waiting, waiting for you to remember her, waiting for you to call her back from the edges of your life. You do not need him to wake up. You need to remember yourself. There is a mirror in the room, covered in dust. You have avoided it for years, afraid of what you might see, but tonight something shifts. You wipe the glass with trembling hands. For the first time, you see your own face. Not the face you have worn for him, not the mask of the martyr, but the face of the woman who survived. There is pain in her eyes, there is longing, but there is also a fierce, wild hope. The hope that comes not from waiting for someone else to awaken, but from the decision to awaken yourself. You touch your chest. The wound is still there, but it is no longer bleeding. It is becoming a scar, a reminder, a map. He is not the villain. You are not the victim. You are simply two souls, each carrying your own wounds, each living your own story. You cannot heal him by suffering. You cannot change him by bleeding. You cannot save him by disappearing. The altar was never meant for you. The flowers were never meant to last. The candle was never meant to burn forever. You do not need to remain where love is proven by pain. This is the truth. You have been waiting for yourself. You have been waiting for the moment when you choose to stop kneeling, stop bleeding, stop offering your life as proof of love. You have been waiting for the moment when you say, I am enough, I am worthy, I do not need to disappear. You look again in the mirror. The face you see is yours. The eyes are tired, but they are alive. You walk through the house, touching the things you once offered as proof. The folded shirts, the clean floors, the meals prepared in silence. You see them now for what they are. Not acts of love, but acts of desperation. Attempts to fill a void that was never yours to fill. You gather the dead flowers from the altar. You let them fall from your hands. You open the window. The night air is cold, but it is honest. He will not change because he was never asked to. You are the one who has changed. You are the one who has awakened. You do not need to save him. You do not need to heal your father. You do not need to remain at the altar of someone else's becoming. You are the woman who can choose to rise. The altar stands empty now, a monument to all the years you spent waiting. You light a single candle, not for him, but for yourself. The flame is small, but it is enough. You sit in the quiet, breathing, remembering. This is not the end of love, but the beginning of something truer, the beginning of your own awakening. You are not here to save a man. You are here to save yourself. The night is deep, but the dawn is coming. You feel it in your bones, in the slow, steady beat of your heart. You are not the martyr. You are not the offering. You are the woman who chooses to live. You are the woman who remembers herself. You are the woman who breaks the vow. There comes a moment, ancient and silent, when the soul stands alone before the altar where she has bled, knelt, prayed, and waited for a miracle that never came. All that remains are the offerings, the white dress stained crimson, the brittle flowers, the candle long since extinguished. The air is heavy with the scent of endings. The silence is not absence, but a threshold. She stands at the edge, barefoot, trembling but unbroken. The altar is behind her, but the memory of kneeling still aches in her knees. She looks down, sees her own blood pooled at her feet. Decades of sacrifice poured out in the hope that love would finally arrive, that he would finally awaken, that her pain would finally mean something. But now the bleeding slows. Now the wound, once raw and open, begins to close. Something ancient stirs in the marrow of her bones. She has come to the end of her offering. He didn't destroy you, but you're bleeding because you stayed when your soul was already gone. This is the threshold of individuation, Jung's name for the path back to oneself, for the slow, fierce birth of sovereignty. No more fusion, no more offering the self as proof of love. This is not rebellion, but return. This is not abandonment, but resurrection. You do not need to change the other. You do not need to bleed for the dream. You do not need to keep kneeling before a love that asks for your extinction. The altar was built by your longing, but you are the one who can dismantle it. She reaches for the white dress, now heavy with the weight of all her silent years. The fabric, once pure, is streaked with old blood, her own, willingly given. She carries it to the garden in the pale morning light. The earth receives it gently. She buries it with her own hands, each shovelful a prayer of release. As the soil covers the dress, the memory of bleeding softens. She does not erase her past, but she no longer worships it. The altar crumbles behind her, stone by stone, as if it was always waiting for her to let go. The altar is empty now. The flowers are gone, the candle cold. She walks away, barefoot, feeling the roughness of the ground and the unexpected pleasure of pain that is her own. Not a sacrifice, but a sensation, a reminder that she is alive. She returns inside. The mirror stands waiting, clean for the first time in years. She looks, and this time she does not turn away. The face she sees is older, marked by sorrow and longing, but it is hers. The eyes are clear, not with innocence, but with wisdom. She sees herself, not as a martyr, not as an offering, but as a woman. She breathes. The air is different. The house, once haunted by the echo of her giving, is quiet, but not empty. For the first time, it feels like a home. She moves through the rooms, touching everything she once used as proof. The shirts, the table, the bed. She does not need to erase them. They are no longer altars, no longer sites of sacrifice. They are simply what they are. She is simply who she is. There is still a wound, but it is hers to tend now. She lifts her hands, stained but steady, and washes them in dark water, watching as the old blood dissolves and the skin beneath returns. She is not pure, but she is whole. She walks to the window, opens it wide, lets the morning in. The world is new, though nothing has changed. She is new, though nothing has been added. She stands in the light, feeling it burn away the last shadows of her vow. In the garden, the altar stands empty, dismantled. The ground is bare, except for a single wildflower that grows where the dress is buried. She kneels, not in surrender but in gratitude. She does not pray for his awakening. She does not pray for his return. She prays for herself, for courage, for memory, for the strength to never bleed for a dream again. This is your last offering. Walk away. Walk back to yourself. She sees the throne now, illuminated behind a gate only she can open. For years it stood in the background, shrouded, waiting for her to remember her own sovereignty. She walks to it, pushes the gate open. The throne is not gold, not encrusted with jewels, but carved from the wood of her own history, strong enough to bear her weight. She sits. The feeling is unfamiliar. To take up space, to belong to herself, to be the ruler of her own heart. She feels the veil, once red and heavy, fall from her eyes. The world becomes clear. No more bleeding for love. No more worshiping at the altar of absence. No more offering herself for a promise that was never made. She remembers the contract now, not as destiny but as a choice made in the fog of longing, the vow to bleed, to save, to disappear. She breaks it, quietly, irrevocably. I break the vow of bleeding for love. Her voice is steady, echoing through every room, every year, every memory. She stands. The throne remains, her new altar, not to him but to herself. The mirror is bright. The garden is wild. The house is hers. He did not destroy you, but you bled because you stayed when your soul was already gone. This is the end of sacrifice. This is the beginning of returning. You are not here to save a man. You are here to remember yourself. Individuation is the slow, holy labor of reclaiming what was lost. The laughter, the hunger, the wildness, the sovereignty. It is the refusal to disappear for another. It is the sacred rebellion against the altar of pain. You do not need to be chosen. You do not need to be enough for someone who cannot see you. You do not need to offer your heart as proof. You are the proof. Your life is the altar now. At the edge of the garden, she finds the gate, open at last. She steps through, the world before her, the past behind. The blood is no longer an offering. It is the river that carries her forward. She does not look back. The altar is gone. The house is filled with her own light. The throne is hers. The mirror is honest. She walks into the morning barefoot, sovereign, whole. You are not the martyr. You are not the offering. You are not the altar. You are the woman who walked away. You are the woman who remembered. You are the woman who reigns. He didn't destroy you, but you're bleeding because you stayed when your soul was already gone. This is your last offering. Walk away. Walk back to yourself. I break the vow of bleeding for love.